Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark here on Sirius XM Channel 84. Good evening, everybody. College basketball Saturday is on the way, a huge one. We will be talking Auburn, Kentucky, a massive, massive game at Auburn tomorrow. And to preview it, we've got Wendell Green Jr., who's coming off a 12-point, 11-assist performance in the Tigers win over Georgia earlier this week. He's coming up here on Sirius XM Channel 84. John Fanta, Kevin Sweeney, Terrence Oglesby with you. And guys, in the last hour, Memphis head coach Penny Hardaway issued an apology on Instagram and apologizing for what happened last night after the Tigers lost to SMU, a Memphis team that was shorthanded in the game, a Memphis team that has been the furthest thing from cohesive from the start of the season. And Penny Hardaway basically dropped some words to the media, questioned them, attacked them, made some comments that were out of bounds, and tonight he apologizes via IG. Kevin Sweeney, what's your temperature on what's happening at Memphis and what could come out of this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge, right, is at this point, the situation and the vibe, I guess the vibe is kind of a lame word to use, but I mean, the vibe out of Memphis is just so broken that I just don't know how you fix it. I think there's so much negativity. There's so much frustration inside the locker room. It seems there's so many differing agendas. I just don't see how this thing gets fixed. I think the bigger problem for me is, if you're Penny Hardaway, you're trying to lead, you're trying to set an example for these, 18-year-olds, right? Like, one of the biggest things he said in this press conference was like, I've got 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and SMU's got 22, 23, 24-year-olds, and we're trying to learn, right? And if that's how you feel, then you've played in the NBA, set an example for these guys about how to take a loss, about how to manage a situation like this. Because every basketball player is going to go through a bad chemistry locker room at some point. Every basketball player is going to go through a disappointing season at some point. And I think my biggest frustration with how Penny handled things last night was he didn't set a good example for those guys that are trying to learn. And the reason why those kids committed to come to play for Penny at Memphis was because he sold them on how he's going to teach them how to be professionals. And that goes beyond, teaching Amani Bates how to navigate ball screens or how to navigate his Twitter hate, right? It is about how you carry yourself. And Penny Hardaway did not carry himself as a professional last night. And it was disappointing for me as someone who has, I think, believed in Penny, who believed in this program coming into the season. I just wanted to see a leader in that spot, and I didn't see it. I'm glad he's apologizing. And, I hope that the rest of the way he leads this group. And because, again, there's talent here to start turning things in a more positive direction. But I don't think when that's the message from your leader after you have a difficult loss like that is a good indication that things are going to turn in the positive direction anytime soon.
When is Penny lost? And when I say that, I mean, like, in generalities, not necessarily when is he lost in games. When has Penny ever lost? And this is the first time in Penny's. Well, he had injuries in the NBA, but it was remarkable that he was able to still turn into a pretty consistent career as a role player doing his job. That was in my mind a win over something that he couldn't overcome because knees are knees. And 15, 20 years ago, whenever it was he played, that you didn't come back from those things. When has he lost coaching? He hasn't. Now, let me say this. College basketball is the first place that he's coached where having more talent than the other team's just not enough. And I think that's significant. And I think it's big because that's why he's frustrated. He's never lost. He's always had more talent than the other team. He still has more talent. I don't care if two people sat out or not against SMU. He still had more talent than the team they were playing. He's frustrated. Has a lot to do with that. But as far as it's part of it that he's going to come in. Now, the F-bombs and all that stuff, I understand what you're saying there, Kev. But, like, for the most part, I understand why he's upset. Like, don't disrespect me, but at the same time, you come in. I feel like I said this last night, but I'm just going to say it again. You want all the smoke. You're getting all the smoke. How do you deal with the smoke? A lot of smoke. And there's so much smoke coming out of every end of Memphis right now that, like, they don't know what to do. Like, where's Sheed? Nobody knows where Sheed's at. I mean, some people know. But you get what I'm saying? Like the dysfunctional roster, dysfunctional coaching staff, a lot going on. Like it's a, I'm not going to say dumpster fire, but it's close. It's close.
Here's the facts. Penny Hardaway was given the keys to this program. He was told, go run with it. Resurrect Memphis basketball. It was such a Hollywood script that it appears too good to be true. It's the furthest thing from that right now. And at the end of the day, he's apologizing tonight because last night's comments were out of line in that you have to point to yourself.
Yes.
As to why this isn't going well. And this goes back to former players, all-time greats, taking on the head coaching role at the college level. The way that you went through your college experience / pro experience is not the way that the majority of the people you're coaching, regardless if they're, I'm not even talking about Imani Bates and Jalen Duren. I'm talking about your role players. What they're going through, the relatability there is not in sync. And in 2022, everybody's walking in believing that they are getting their ticket and going straight to the association in some way, shape, or form. But you're Penny Hardaway. You know who out of the group's going. But so does Tom Izzo. The difference is those guys, meaning a guy like Izzo, a guy like Bob Huggins, a guy like Jay Wright, a guy like Greg McDermott at Creighton, those guys have a better relatability with what their players' pathways are than a guy who has never lost, was damn good enough that he never lost, but doesn't exactly understand what his 7th or 8th best player is even going through. And the idea of that conversation being relatable, it just doesn't translate.
He struggled with role definition too. Like he struggled telling his guys. That's exactly what you're alluding to. I mean, it's simple 2 words. Role definition is all that you just said in such a poetic fashion. It's like he's never been that other guy. Like Penny was never that other guy in college. And in a time where every guy is trying to get drafted, if you go to Memphis, you're trying to get drafted. We understand. We understand how this is going to go. Not everybody's going to get drafted, even on the best teams. Like, so it's hard for him to be able to do that, but you have to get those other guys that aren't as significant in the point column to completely buy in. Look at Tyler Wall. We just talked about him earlier, Wisconsin. Like, you need guys like that. Memphis doesn't have guys like that. And they don't have a point guard, but that's not what we're talking about. They don't have those extra guys that do everything else guys. They don't have that.
Kevin, how does this end up?
I think it ends with an exodus this offseason, right? I don't know if that will be. I think it certainly will involve players. I think it will involve coaching staff members as well. Quite honestly, there's a chance it involves Penny Hardaway. I wouldn't rule it out at this point, but to me, I think they're going to have to clean house. And I think one of the interesting things is you saw Memphis last year build a roster that was more built around some transfers, some multi-year guys. And I think they had a group of guys that by the end of the year were playing for one another and they were buying into roles. And they were talented enough to be really, really good, but they were also cohesive and together and not everyone, having their own agenda. And I think this should be a lesson for Penny, right? And assuming he gets another opportunity to build this roster again, to say, look, we don't need 4 first-round picks. We need enough guys who can, we need an all-conference guy, probably 2 all-conference guys. We need some guys who can buy in. We need some Tyler Walls, right? And I think if Penny has and his staff have the humility to go out and say, we don't need to chase the marketing. We don't need to chase the brand and try to sell Memphis as this, NBA factory. We need to focus on winning some ball games. I think that, maybe they can turn it around, but I think this season ends and there will be a lot of guys headed to the pros, headed to the portal, headed to other schools. I can't see this thing running back next year.